Alright guys, in today's tutorial we are finally getting down to brass tacks and we are getting into the nitty-gritty of the weapon and armor upgrading system in Destiny 2, and this is on Xbox. Hit the start button, it will default to the character tab. This is where we're focusing our attention today. So the very first top bar on the left is going to be your kinetic weapon slots. So right now I have an exotic weapon equipped. This is the Mida multi-tool. Down here is where you can hover over to equip if you have the catalyst unlocked. You will notice that this is empty. I have not earned this catalyst in game. This is actually one of the more challenging ones to get, which is a shame because this is one of my favorite weapons in the game. But if you have a catalyst and you're tracking progress and or you're ready to slot it in and get the additional perks, this is where you do it. You drill straight into the gun in question, hover over, and then the catalyst would show up right there underneath it and show you your progress along that path. And once it's complete, you just take it from there and slot it into the catalyst slot. That is specific to exotic weapons. If I stroll over here, for example, to the Osteostriga, you will notice that if I hover over the mod slot, there are no mods. There's no catalyst slot. Not all exotic weapons have catalysts. Most do, but not all of them. And it's really a balance thing. This weapon is already extremely powerful, so they, at least to date, have not put a catalyst available for this gun. But if we scroll over to something like one of these legendary weapons, and there's several different types I'm going to show you. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you look at this weapon here, the Percy's D, you will notice that it has a gold border around it. If you look at the weapons over here, it's a white border. This one's a red border. So what this means when it's got the gold border is that I have ranked that weapon all the way up. So if I click Y to drill into the details, this is where I not only have the ability to select the specific perks that I want on the weapon, but this is also where you upgrade the weapon. Now this shows masterwork. Masterwork on this weapon for me, on this specific role, was for range. So I've already maxed it out, so there's nothing else I can do to get better stats on this gun. But you'll notice out over here to the right that the range column has this little gold bar on the side. That's all of the additional bonus range that I got by leveling this weapon up to max. And it changes based on the weapon. It's RNG, whatever the masterwork column over here is going to be on any given weapon, but there's also a lot of really good usable data. Aside from it giving you the numbers, if you scroll over and just hover, it will tell you exactly what all of the columns mean in the game. And the very bottom is kind of an interesting one to know. Airborne effectiveness, that means how good is this weapon if you jump up in the air and you're trying to hit a target. So scout rifles in general are not particularly great at it, and you'll see it's only got a 12, so yeah, it's tough. But the aim assist, this is another really useful tool to know, and it is exactly what it says like. It's the amount of aim assist that is intrinsically built into the weapon in the game. So this one's at 36. It's not super high, but it's not super low. So you do have to get on your target dead on by yourself without the game helping you out a little bit more before the aim assist is going to kick in. The higher the number, the greater the aim assist. And then this final section over here is for weapon mods, which we went into all of the unlockable mods in the mod menu. This is where you can select from any number of mods that you might want to put on your weapon. Now for me, because this is a scout rifle, I want it to be as accurate as possible. I don't want a lot of recoil, so I put on this counterbalance stock, and you'll see that this says it reduces the recoil deviation for the weapon. And I can see by this number down here, it'll show no matter what the mod is, what the recoil direction is. 89 There is kind of a Christmas tree chart you can look up online to show you where, in terms of pulling left, pulling right, pulling up, pulling down, any weapon in the game is going to be based on this number that goes from 0 to 100. This one at 89 is pretty close to dead on target. I think it might pull slightly right and slightly up, but it's slight. It's almost as close to dead on target as possible as you continue putting shots on. And you'll also see further specifics about the weapon, the archetype, your RPM capability, how big the mag is, and it also down here in the intrinsic traits tells you about the weapon. The 150 RPM scouts are the high impact frame archetypes, and it gives you further information, and it's just general classifications. Each weapon is different. Over here we have trackers. I like to track Crucible, so it tells me how many enemies in the Crucible I have killed with my specific weapon. If I wanted to change it, I could change it to just PvE tracking, but I'm going to leave it on Crucible because that's where I like to know the stats on this gun. And then I can scroll through and see any of the other bonus traits that I have equipped on the weapon. Now, if I scroll over to a weapon that is not a gold border, say this one right here, the crate, which is one of the few energy specific type. This is a stasis kinetic weapon. I click Y to drill into the details. If I hover over the masterwork column, it says that on this weapon, the masterwork capability on this gun is related to stability. Now, if you want to start progressing up to a max of 10 on any of the archetypes to max out the weapon's capability, you hover over down just below it to the right, to the left, excuse me, and it will show you what the cost of materials is to go up to the next tier. So if I want to take this up to tier 3 on the stability masterwork, I just hover over this box, I hold down A, and it will take 1 legendary shard and 2500 glimmer. As soon as that completes, it's got the point value for the next tier up. And we can see scrolling over here, now the stability on this gun is a 71. If I were to do it again, hover over, it will tell me that it costs shards and glimmer, and now it's also going to cost me 1 enhancement core. But if I hold it down, you'll see it now goes up to 72. And you'll also notice as you're hovering over the box to actually go through the process to upgrade, if you look over to the right on stability, because this is a stability masterwork weapon, it will show you a green arrow up, so it goes up by 1 point each time. If I were to go through this process all the way up to level 10, this would get the max stability boost on the weapon, and it would go from being a white border to looking gold, just like the one on this weapon or this weapon. So that is how the weapon upgrade system works. But before we leave off of this first column here, I do want to point out this red border weapon. This is related to the patterns and the custom weapon crafting in the game. You'll notice at the bottom it says attunement progress 0%. That means I have not used this weapon and gotten kills or any experience with the weapon. As you play with the weapon, that bar will fill up. It does not really take all that long to do. And once you hit 100%, you can drill into the weapon and extract the pattern from the weapon. Doing that pattern extraction is what gets you credit towards the weapon pattern. And once you have learned enough of that same weapon pattern by upgrading the requisite amount of that same red border weapon in question, then you have the ability to custom craft that weapon. So the closest and best example I can show you right now is if I scroll over to the Amit AR2. This was one of the ones in the weapon crafting video I showed you that I already have the pattern unlocked. So now it's showing me up top underneath the weapon power level that says 1573, you'll see it says weapon level 9, and there's a bar filled out in red that says 38%. That means that is my current weapon progress for getting the XP on the weapon to unlock all of the different perk options at the weapon crafting relic itself. Once I hit weapon level 16, I will have all of the available perk combinations on this weapon available to me. I will take this weapon back to the relic and I will recraft it with the exact role that I want. And there are a couple that I'm currently working on. Brigand's Law is another one. You'll notice if I scroll over to my Drong, or Drang as most people would say, this was the one that I already had maxed, unlocked everything, and it already has my perk roll, and it says level 29. Well, that's beyond the level 16 to unlock everything that you need, but it just keeps tracking your progress. So if you want to know how much you've used a gun that's craftable, this is a pretty good quick indicator. And all of these other weapons and all of these other subtypes and subclasses work the exact same way. Those that are gold, I have already masterworked, and those that track the weapon level, these are the craftable specifics, so they function differently. And those that are neither mean I just haven't fully upgraded them yet. So here is a reload masterwork weapon. Right now the reload speed on this is 26. If I hover over down here, you would see what it costs to upgrade it one more point to 27. So it's the exact same all the way down, just as going through the available perks that you may want to change out. And you just hover over, it tells you exactly what the perk does. You've got your kill tracker for PvP and PvE, as well as mod slots that you can swap out. So very, very easy once you know what you're doing and where to look. Now, the same holds true on the armor side of the equation. So right now I am wearing the Fallen Sunstar. This is a Warlock exotic. You'll see that it says energy 8, and this bar is not completely white all the way to the end. And if I hover over, you'll see on the armor, it tells me that here's what is the required pieces to fully upgrade this piece to maximum. If I wanted to upgrade this to the maximum of 10, to go from 8 to 9, it's going to cost me 4,000 glimmer, 5 shards, and 3 prisms. And to go from 9 to 10, it gets even more costly. It would go at that point either into Ascendant Shards or possibly 5 Prisms. I think it's Ascendant Shards maybe in tandem with Prisms on exotics, and it is different based on the item in use. So right now I've got it up to 8 energy. And I stopped there because the exact build I was going for only required a total of 8 energy with the mods that I have selected. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It didn't even require all of it. And you can see as you scroll through that different mods and different tiers of specific mods cost different energy requirements, and this is why you have to upgrade. It's related to the mods on the piece of equipment in question. And this does not function quite the same way on armor as it does for weapons. Weapons masterwork and you get a single category, but if you max out a piece of armor, it does it in all categories. You'll notice this down here, all of the columns, mobility, resilience, recovery, all the way down the line are all white. And then this one above it is gold barred, which means I masterworked it. And then unlike the masterworked weapons over here that'll gold barred, I hover over and there's only one column, the range on that one, that shows gold. If I hover over this gold bordered armor, all of the columns are gold. The increase is not as high as on a single weapon, but you do get an increase across the board in all categories for masterworking a piece of armor. So very, very, very useful. Let me scroll over to just another piece of armor to show you kind of how it functions. This infuse, this is a little tricky. So right now this piece of armor, if I hover over it, you'll see it's a power level 1562 compared to my 1573 on the gloves that I'm wearing right now. If I wanted to upgrade this piece of armor to a higher number, I will have to sacrifice another piece of the same type of armor to use towards boosting its power level up. So say for instance I wanted to immediately go to a 1573. One of the available armor options I could do is I could use these Osteomancy gloves that are already a 1573. And you'll notice when I hover over it, at the bottom it says upgrade module. So in order to upgrade and infuse this piece of armor to make it a higher power level, it will cost me 1 upgrade module. And it says X dismantle for infusion. If I were to hold that down, a progress bar would run across the bottom, and then this item would disappear. It would be broken down in order to increase the power level on this item. Now, I don't actually want to do that with this item, but this is where you can pick which item you want to use as the breakdown piece to move up the power level of the item in question. And you'll see, just like on the exotics, it functions the same way. There's energy requirements, and this is where you just come over here, hold down apply, and it will start bumping the energy up based on the cost it tells you. Over here, yet again, is where you select your mods, and you'll notice now, because this is currently a void archetype piece of armor, that the mods that I can slot in are restricted to void, or they are restricted to no specific subclass type required. So the white ones, these green ones, are related to charged with light abilities, and there's different ones in game, Warmind ones. It just depends on the piece in question. Now, another thing that's very cool about the armor, say you're going for a specific build that requires mods that can only be used on a specific subclass type, well, you have the option to change the subclass. You will have to unquip any mods you already have in the piece of armor in question, and then you can hover over and you have multiple options. You can go for changing the subclass to a tier 1, which is the cheapest option, or you can retain that same level you already have on the current subclass type and just change the subclass type itself. So it costs some shards and some glimmer, but that is by far the most effective means if you have the resources to do it. So if I wanted to change this from being a void subclass piece of armor, all I would have to do is hover over this box, pick the related subclass I want to move it to, and then hold down the A button and it would fill it out. I don't want to change it on this piece of armor. I just wanted to show you that that is a function in the game and how it works. Finally, when we get down to the ghost shell, this is one of the more interesting areas. So basically all of the shells are cosmetic, but it functions the same way. There's energy requirements that you have to build up, and they have related mods. So let me just pick one that says energy 1. This is the one I've been using for a long time because I like the way it looks, but say I wanted to swap out to this shell. If I drill into the details, I hover over, you will see, just like any of the other armor pieces, it will say how much energy I have and what it costs to start moving it up the rank. So if I hold down A, it'll go through 1 tier. Now it's in energy level 2. Do it again, energy 3, all the way, so on and so forth. And now, as I move the energy up, I have different mods for my ghost. Now, the ghost mods are quite interesting, and they're quite a bit different, and there's a lot of different things that you would do with them. So some are related to XP bursts, XP boosts in game. That's the very first column here. And it tells you as you scroll over what the XP boost is that you can get just while playing, and what the related energy cost is in order to get that boost. The next column over is going to be basically where you're able to find chests and world resources in game while you're playing. This is also very powerful, so depending on what activity or thing you're going for, you'll just want to come over here and swap out these mods onto different mods. So right now I have it set for when I was enhancement prism farming in the Crucible. I'm not playing the Crucible right now. Let's say I wanted to go farm for world resources. I would just take that one off. It's always this top leftmost option. Then that throws me back with 6 unused energy. So I have up to 6 more energy points available towards perks. So I wanted world resources. Well, this last one is by and away the most useful. I will be able to detect world resources from 50 meters away. That's going to be both the resource nodes themselves and the chests which drop resources. So I would just hover over this one, hit A, hold it down, and it will apply it. And you'll notice, yes, it does cost a small amount of glimmer, but it's trivial, so I don't normally worry about it. The next section over this is going to be economic mod slots. So what that means is glimmer and other possible roles for armor. So as you play the game, armor will drop. Well, how do you farm for specific drops or rolls that you want on armor? This is the best way to do it. And it says as you hover over the different armor class types, say I was scrolling for, wanted a piece of armor that focused on grenades. Well, if I hover over this, I have that option. It tells you specifically, armor pieces with random stats will have a guaranteed minimum of dropping with 10, which is the max, more in this column, and it's going to be more likely that they drop with preference for the specific subclass type of, and it's discipline if you want nades, intellect for your super, mobility, that's across everybody, recovery, that's your class specific, resilience, that's your damage resistance, strength, that's for your melee. And it can scroll through even further. Bountiful Harvest. This is another one that I often will use in tandem with this. I don't know why it's in this column, really, but it does give you a chance to pull double resources. So if you're resource farming, using one of these in tandem with one of these, one of the last two options is always a great way to do it. Then finally is activity mods. This is where you can earn different types of upgrades that you need for crafting and upgrading your gear just by playing different activities. So say I'm in the Crucible and I want to farm for enhancement cores. If I have the energy left to do so, I could select that just by picking this mod over here. The next one over is going to be Prisms. The exact same thing with the exact same cost for people that are doing it while playing Gambit. Same thing while playing Vanguard Strikes. On and on down the line. So you can just scroll through this entire list to determine which mod is best for you based on what it is you're trying to find and what activity you're playing at the time. So the Ghost is a very powerful tool. I highly recommend getting whichever Ghost cosmetic you like best ranked up to level 10 as early as possible, because there are a lot of really good bonuses that's going to make your life easier for farming, not only for XP in-game as well as for the materials that you need in order to upgrade your gear. Guys, I know it is, again, a lot to take in, but you'll at least have this as a reference to come back to if you ever forget. You can just go back, rewatch the video, and as you're going through getting your stuff upgraded, you'll be able to quickly see, here's what I need to do that. I know it is a lot to remember, but once you start actually doing it yourself, it will become second nature. Anyway, guys, I hope you find this tutorial helpful, and we will catch you on the next New Light Guide.